Hi, everybody. This is Jack Allwile with another money episode. I'm here with my pie shirt, feeling extra nerdy, and I hope you are doing very well. Today, I'm going to be discussing the book Taking Stock by Jordan Grumet. He's a doctor and he goes by Doc G and is the host on the Earn and Invest podcast. Now, this is a book. The subtitle is A Hospice Doctor's Advice on Financial Independence, Building Wealth, and Living a Regret-Free Life. So this is a hospice doctor's and a financial communicator hitting head on, and a very interesting book. He talks a lot about the patients that he sees at the end of their lives. What are they thinking? What are they saying? What are the biggest regrets they have? And he actually lists the top 5 regrets of the dying. So number 1, he says, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. Now you can notice that these regrets have nothing to do with money. And that's kind of the point of the story, is that we spend so much time trying to build a financial foundation. And that's not to say it's not important, but the regrets of the dying, often don't have anything to do with money. They have to do with connections with people, purpose, and things that they're doing. They say they actually regret working too hard. So, let that sink in when you're working extra hours for your employer on a Saturday or Sunday, I suppose. So he kind of talks about, a lot of people think, I just have to get to $1 million. And then, with the 4% rule, I can live off of 40 grand a year. If I can just get to that $1 million, I'll be set. I can go work on my purpose. And he's kind of arguing that you should be thinking about your purpose and identity at the same time you're building your financial foundation. And that's not to say you shouldn't focus on it, but you should be thinking about how you're going to get to what you should be doing. He brings up these 2 concepts, slow-fi and coast-fi, as in slow financial independence and coast financial independence. Slow-fi being the idea that you would be able to, if you really didn't like your job, you could kind of move down and pay, do something with a little more, you have a little more connection to, you get more purpose out of, and you'd be able to save a little bit on top of your investment pile that you have right now. And eventually you'd still be able to hit your FI number. It just might take a little longer. Now, coast FI is the idea that you have a pool of money and it's invested in some way and it's growing, and you've put so much in that you could actually stop putting money in and kind of coast to financial independence by getting another job that would basically cash flow your expenses. So money comes in with this new job or whatever, and money goes out to pay for your daily expenses. He talks a real lot about the idea that money, we've forgotten that money is a tool. So at the end of the day, we should think of money as a tool. We have other tools. You have connections with people, you have communities, you have skills, but money is just a tool. So if there's something in your life that you really don't like, well, maybe it doesn't make sense to just be super frugal. Maybe it makes sense to just, pay someone else to do something that you really don't like to do. He calls it the art of subtraction. So he seems very big on that. There's a slight kind of question that I ask, though, because he's, on one hand, he's kind of saying this like art of subtraction, but on the other hand, he's kind of saying that you should take ownership of your finances, which I agree with. But how do you kind of ask a real high earner, if their sole purpose is their profession, like a brain surgeon that just really likes doing brain surgeries, like, should he be spending time kind of getting his finances right, or should he just pay a financial advisor? So there's that kind of question that I think would be interesting to ask, how he would respond to that. And should that person still go through the learning curve of learning about finances? He does bring up the fact that he doesn't think it really takes that long to get a hold of your finances. And I think I would agree with that, but I spend a lot of time looking at my finances. So, but I also kind of like it a lot. So that's an interesting segment. The second half of the book has to do with a lot of end of life planning and also contingency planning. He has what's called an ICE binder that one can set up with their spouse. And this is ICE, ICE, in case of emergency binder, where you can get all the accounts and passwords for your spouse's accounts in case if they were to die. So how would you get into their account? And it also helps you go through the practice of identifying the beneficiaries on all the policies. And he gives a sad story of, well, it ended up being okay, but a story of a man that died and he had been married a while. His beneficiary on his policy, though, was his old girlfriend from like 10 years ago. So his old girlfriend actually got the money upon his death. And luckily she gave the wife the money, but legally she didn't have to. So this ICE binder would have prevented something like that from happening. So at least make sure you have the correct beneficiaries and accounts as you're going forward. I mean, in that same vein, he gives ideas on how to bring up the idea of end of life planning. How do you kind of transition from your parents to you, and kind of setting that up. And he gives strategies for bringing up those tough conversations. So with that, this was a very good book. That all the talk on regret, I actually went and signed up for a cob building seminar, and cob is organic material from like clay and straw, and you can use to build houses, like hobbit houses basically. And I've kind of been very intrigued by these. They're very sturdy, they last a long time, don't really wear out like typical wood in the area that I am in, at least. And so I was thinking about it for a long time and hadn't gone through with it. And I did think that would be one thing I would regret if I didn't at least take a step forward to learning about it. And I might find that I don't want to do it, but I at least signed up for a seminar where I'm going to get some hands-on experience with building with cob. So that was kind of the action step that I took from this. And also to, kind of just like not be so harsh and so like strict with my spending. Because at the end of the day, tomorrow's not guaranteed. And we talk about like, spending money, but we don't really talk about, wasting time or our time in that same vein. And he did bring up a YOLO fund. I'm sure most people are familiar with like an emergency fund, but he's talking about a you only live once fund, where it's like guilt-free spending. And I kind of, in my budget, I call it my fun money. So I think that's a good practice to not be so strict and treat yourself occasionally, and live life and cherish life. And I will see you in the next episode. Now, I know we're going to be interviewing Jordan actually on the Brothers on Books podcast. So that should be on YouTube shortly and on podcast. So check out for that too when we actually bring the author on. So that should be a good listen. Thanks and take care.